Hi guys, it's Amy here and today I bring you my November wrap up. So November for me has been my worst reading month of the year. I read 8 books. That's still a lot of books to read, but I am trying to keep it to 10 books a month. So this means in December I'm gonna have to read 12 books, which, I mean, I think I can do it because I've got a lot of time off between Christmas and New Year, but obviously it's just extra stress in December. But I really want to get to 120 books by the end of the year. Next year I think I'm just gonna wing it and see what I get to, but this year I do really want to get to that target because I'm so close now and I want to get there. So let's jump into the books. I'm gonna start with my lowest star rating first and move up to my highest star rating. To kick things off, I'm going to start with the 3 stars, and the first one goes to The Dollmaker of Cacao by R.M. Romero. This one tells the story of a doll named Carolina who is living in the land of the dolls where there is a huge war going on, and something happens that transports her to Krakow in Poland into the shop of a dollmaker, and from there we are involved in the story of this dollmaker in Krakow as the Nazis are coming in during World War II. Before some of the chapters we have these differently bordered pages which are the story of the land of the dolls, and so we kind of flick between the land of the dolls and Krakow in Poland and hear of their story as well. The land of the dolls are at war with a big group of rats who are trying to take over the place, and so you can see the kind of parallels between the Nazis and the land of the dolls. The whole kind of fairy tale element of the story is kind of weaved in beautifully between the land of the dolls and then kind of these Jewish people who are trying to hide and escape the Nazis. It's just really nicely told. I think because I've read a lot of World War II fiction, this one didn't go above and beyond anything that I've read before, but I did really enjoy it, and I think it would be perfect for young people who maybe have an interest in World War II but don't really know kind of where to start, or like whether they want to kind of read fiction or whether they want to go and pick up like a historical kind of factual book. This kind of gives you the facts but in a more kind of easy to read way, I guess. And at the end of the book there is this chronology of the kind of factual events that happen in real life which the story is based around, and so I think it would be perfect for young people who have an interest in World War II. Next we have a poetry collection which is The Bees by Duffy. So I read Rapture, which is another collection in this similar format from Duffy a couple of months ago, and I really enjoyed it. Like, I gave it 5 stars. It's most certainly the best poetry collection I've ever read, and so I was very excited to read something else from Duffy, and I just didn't quite have the same connection with the poems in this one as I did with the poems in Rapture. Rapture was more kind of centered on love and finding love, or being out of love, or kind of grief and losing people, and that was, I think it was just perfect for where I was in my life at the time, and so it just really connected with me, and that's why I loved it so much. This one, however, had such a different array of poems. They weren't all kind of, they didn't all have the same kind of feeling, or they weren't all kind of directly linked to each other, so I just didn't feel like some of them I just didn't understand, and that is a common thing with me in poetry. That's probably why I don't read it a lot anyway, is that I just kind of read it and I don't really know what's going on. But there were definitely ones in here that I did really enjoy. I just didn't think the collection as a whole struck me as much as Rapture did. On the back here it says there are drinking songs, love poems, poems of political anger, there are elegies too for beloved friends, and most movingly the poet's mother. Those ones about her mother were the ones I really liked in this book. You can tell from that list there that there are a lot of different things she kind of covers in this book, so if you're looking for something that kind of has a lot of range and a lot of stuff going on, then maybe this one is for you. But as I said, I think Rapture was fantastic, so I would highly recommend that one as well. Moving on to my 4-star reads for the month, firstly I have volume 6 of Saga. I feel like the story developed a lot more in this one than it did in the previous 2 volumes. I'm not going to go into what this one is specifically about because if you haven't read all the other volumes then I'm going to be spoiling it for you, but I will say that I feel the characters in this one have really started to come into their own. Like, I feel like for me, graphic novels and or these kind of comic series, I really need to kind of get into them to enjoy the characters, because for me I feel like it takes me a long time to come to know a character and really love a character, and so I feel like now, volume 6, I'm really beginning to know these characters and I'm really enjoying their stories, and I'm like kind of seeing all the kind of nuances in them just through the illustration style, which I think is a really kind of important thing in a kind of graphically designed book. But yes, I really enjoyed this one. I felt like a lot happened, the plot thickened as it were, and I would say if you're on volumes 4 or 5 and you're not really enjoying them that much, I'd just wait till you get to this one because it definitely picks up, and I can't wait to read Saga volume 7. I've also just realised how rubbish my Christmas tree looks from the bottom. Like, can you even tell that this is a Christmas tree? It's so sparse, and you can see I've just got like a little reindeer on my shoulder. Oh dear. Next we have another graphic novel, and that is The Boxer by Reinhard Kleist. So this one is a graphic memoir kind of depicted by Reinhard Kleist, and it's following the life of a man named Harry Haft. During World War II, he was taken as a prisoner of war and he was forced to fight other prisoners kind of for the entertainment of the Nazis, and through that he became very good at boxing. He then moved to America after the end of the war and kind of made a name for himself in America as a boxer. It's all done in black and white and really reminded me of Mouse by Art Spiegelman, but I actually think I preferred the illustration style in this one a bit more to the illustrations in Mouse by Art Spiegelman. I just think the detail in this was just so good. I really enjoyed, like, even just the like expressions on their faces were just so brilliantly done, and I really enjoyed it. If you guys enjoy reading things set during World War II, then I would highly recommend this one. I thought it was really great. Next we have one that I read as a buddy read with my friend Tasha, and that is Hickory, Dickory, Dock by Agatha Christie. This one is a Hercule Poirot novel and I really enjoyed it. This one is set in a student hostel where many kind of different students from different places all around the world are living in this kind of shared space together. Poirot is initially called to the hostel because there is an outbreak of things going missing. They believe there is a thief among them, and he has been asked to kind of find out where the thief is. And invariably where Poirot ends up, there is also usually a murder involved, and so obviously something happens in this hostel and someone ends up murdered. One of the things I really enjoyed about this was the fact that I actually work in student accommodation at the university in the city that I live in, and so the parallels between like the students in this book and the students that I work with all the time, like it was just quite funny, like because it was essentially like reading through their eyes. Slight difference is no one gets murdered at my work, although I would love it if Poirot came to my work. That would be exciting. This one was a really enjoyable read, and I'd say it's definitely up there with my favourites of the Poirot books that I've read so far. So there we go. And the final book for the 4-star reads is one that I read with my kind of in real life book club, my two best friends, and that is My Grandmother Sends Her Regards and Apologies by Fredrik Backman. This one we really enjoyed. It's told through the perspective of a girl named Elsa whose grandmother dies, and she is left with these notes that her grandmother has written, and she is off kind of on an adventure, I guess, to give these notes to the people that they belong to. And whilst she's doing that, she discovers a lot about her grandmother and the life that she led before Elsa came along. Entwined in this whole story is this whole other kind of world of fairy tales and wonder that Elsa and her grandmother shared together. So her grandmother used to tell her all these stories and kind of take her away from the world for a little like smidgen of time because Elsa's bullied at school and she has a really rough time of it. So her grandmother tells her all these stories to kind of send her away to a fantasy world for a little while, and when her grandmother dies, she struggles to get to this fantasy world and she struggles to understand like what's going on. And as she gives these letters out to people, she realises that these people are kind of parallel to these fairy tales that she has been told by her grandmother. And it's just, the story is very clever, like the way it all comes together and the kind of realizations that you have as you go along. It's just really beautiful. It's told fantastically, and Elsa has such a brilliant voice. Like, she's very clever, and that is somewhat was slightly unbelievable because the conversations and the kind of things that she was having with the various people just didn't seemed quite like they would really happen. Other than that, I thought it was very clever. It was very funny on occasion, and I actually like laughed out loud, which I really liked. The kind of pop culture references to our time, like right now, were really lovely. Like lots of mentions of Harry Potter and things like that. And so if you're like a fan of those kind of things, then I would definitely recommend reading this one. All three of us really loved the book. Thought it was really great, and so we'll certainly be reading more from Fredrik Backman soon. I believe there is another book that actually follows along after this one called Brit Marie Was Here. Brit Marie is a character in this book, and so I'd be tempted to pick up that one next. So yeah, let me know what you think. Have you read this book or anything else from Fredrik Backman? Which would you recommend I pick up next? Moving on to my 5-star reads, and I have 2 for you this month. The first one I have here is We Have Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson. This one I have read before. It is the final book of my Shirley Jackson read through this year. It was just phenomenal. I loved it. I was slightly concerned before reading this one that I wasn't going to enjoy it as much as I did the first time I read it, but I didn't need to worry because I thought it was brilliant. This one follows the story of a girl named Mary Cat who lives with her sister and her uncle in this big estate that is kind of cordoned off from the rest of the town, and the kind of town all look at her strangely when she goes in to buy her groceries, and you kind of learn that she isn't well liked, but you don't really know why. And as the story goes on, you learn that all of Mary Cat's family, bar her sister and her uncle who she's living with, have all been murdered, and something happened in the house many years ago and they all ended up dead. Was it her? Was it someone else? What happened on that night? It's all very shrouded in mystery, and the whole time, like, Mary Cat is a very kind of unreliable narrator. You just don't know what to believe quite, and it's all just so dark. It's one of the most eerie and kind of biting like stories I've ever read. Like every page you just feel like there's something more, there's something like under the skin of what's going on, and you're just trying to peel back that and just find out what the hell has happened with these people. There are themes in this book that are kind of interwoven and just keep popping up every now and again, and for a book so short, it's just so cleverly done. One of these themes is the idea of eating, and like Mary Cat, her sister, is always very concerned that she's not eating enough, or that she hasn't had food, or that she always is provided with the right amount of food, and she's constantly making food for the uncle, and reading it a second time, you kind of pick up on all these tiny little things that are kind of part of the bigger picture of them eating, and how that plays into the bigger story, and it's just very, very clever. It's just really brilliantly done, and I'm glad that this was the final Shirley Jackson book that I had to read, because it was my favourite anyway of the ones that I'd read before this year, but now I know that it is most certainly my favourite. It's the only one I think I gave 5 stars to, and so this is definitely one that will stay on my shelf, and one that I will reread again and again in the future. I'd highly recommend to you all. And the final book I have to show you today is The Golden Fool by Robin Hobb. This is the second book in the Tawley Man trilogy, which is like the third trilogy in the realm of the Elderlings kind of book series by Robin Hobb. I can't really go into what this one's about, because obviously if you haven't read all the others then it's not going to be much point. I would highly recommend though, if you haven't read any Robin Hobb, to just go for it, because she is brilliant, her characters are brilliant, the storylines are just impeccably good. Like I love this so much. It made me cry, it made me laugh, like the characters, you follow them for such a long time. The main character in this one is a man who you follow in like the first series of books, and you like follow him then when he's like a really young boy, and then he's like in his 30s or something, so you just feel like you've been with them for a very long time, and I really love these characters. And other than that, I'm not going to tell you anymore. If you've been on this channel for a while, you've probably heard me kind of rave about Robin Hobb. So many people love Robin Hobb here on YouTube, and so I just think you should go and read them. If my ravings haven't convinced you thus far, then I don't think anything would, and so I just love these. I would highly recommend. Those are all the books that I read in November. I would love to hear if you've read any of them and what you thought of them. Come and chat to me. What did you read in November? Come and say hello. As always, I will leave links to Facebook, Tumblr, Twitter, everything I've mentioned today down below. I hope you're all having a fantastic day, and I will see you soon. Bye!